The world had never seen Gabourey Sidibe the way she suddenly appeared in front of them. In fact, you won't believe how people reacted when her new photos spread online. Fans were shocked, critics went silent, and Hollywood insiders started whispering behind closed doors. Everyone thought they already knew who she was, but here is the shocking part. Nothing about her life was as simple as it looked. For years, she smiled through pressure, judgment, and constant rumors, but inside she was carrying battles that would have broken most people. And this is where it gets interesting because while the world was guessing, she was quietly changing her entire life step by step in ways nobody expected. Long before the transformation, long before the chaos and the heavy headlines, she had walked into the audition room for Precious with no plan to be a Hollywood star. She wasn't trained, she wasn't polished, she wasn't prepared. She walked in with fear, insecurity, and the weight of people's opinions on her shoulders. But something powerful happened the moment she opened her mouth. Casting directors said the whole room changed. The silence, the energy, the atmosphere, everything shifted. She wasn't acting, she was speaking straight from her soul. And within weeks, the role thousands of actresses wanted became hers. Overnight, her life turned upside down. She became famous, respected, celebrated. Newspapers praised her, directors loved her, and people finally heard her voice instead of judging her face. But what makes this story different? Even at the height of success, she was already battling something the world couldn't see. Hollywood adored her acting, but the industry didn't know what to do with a woman who didn't fit their narrow image. Every red carpet brought smiles on the outside, but silent pain on the inside. Instead of celebrating her talent, people focused on her weight. Interviews became uncomfortable. Magazine writers crossed boundaries. Online comments became cruel. And she tried to laugh it off. She tried to be strong. She tried to pretend it didn't hurt. But slowly, the pressure started breaking her confidence piece by piece. Imagine working so hard for your dream, and the world ignores your talent just to talk about your body. Producers whispered that she wasn't fit for certain roles. Strangers felt free to judge her like she wasn't human. And even when she delivered powerful performances in shows like Empire and American Horror Story, the conversation still came back to her appearance. She went home many nights feeling like she wasn't enough, no matter how much she achieved. She hid the pain from fans, but she couldn't hide from herself. And the craziest part was that people didn't know she was slipping into the darkest time of her life. Then one day, destiny took an unexpected turn. She received a phone call that didn't come from a producer or director. It came from a doctor. A routine checkup turned into a life-changing moment. Her blood sugar was dangerous. Her blood pressure was unstable. Her health was no longer just a conversation topic. It was a real threat. For the first time, the comments she had ignored for years hit her differently. It wasn't about looks anymore. It was about survival. She sat alone in her apartment that night, asking herself if she had been living for others, but forgetting to live for herself. And in that silence, she realized something had to change or she might lose everything. That phone call pushed her into a new chapter, one filled with fear, honesty, and courage. She began meeting specialists, changing her habits, and trying to understand her body in ways she never had. But this journey wasn't just physical. It forced her to face emotional pain she had buried for years. The judgment, the pressure, the loneliness, all of it started rising to the surface. She wasn't just trying to get healthier, she was trying to find herself again. And just when she thought she was ready to take control, life tested her harder than ever before. She had barely taken the first steps toward healing when life suddenly pushed her into even deeper waters. What started as simple emotional stress slowly turned into something she could no longer control. She began feeling heavy inside, more than before. Nights turned into long battles with her own thoughts. Days felt slower, darker, unfamiliar. She kept telling herself she was fine, but she wasn't. And this time, pretending didn't work. The pressure she had pushed down for years finally rose to the surface, and she didn't know how to stop it. Panic attacks came without warning. Her chest tightened, her hands shook, her breathing raced. Sleepless nights turned into sleepless weeks, and she felt herself sinking into a place she had never been before. She was scared, but not of Hollywood or critics. She was scared of losing herself completely. For years, she had been strong for everyone else. She smiled when she was hurting. She laughed when she felt empty. She worked when she could barely breathe. She acted brave so no one would see the cracks inside her. But now she couldn't pretend anymore. Her mind was pleading for rest. Her heart felt tired. Her body felt weak. And one night, after another overwhelming panic episode, she broke down. She grabbed her phone with shaky hands and called someone she trusted deeply. Her voice trembled as she said the words she had never dared to say before. "I need help. I can't do this alone." Those 7 words became the moment her entire life shifted. For the first time, she stepped into therapy, not for public image, not because anyone told her to, but because she finally understood how much she had been carrying. In those sessions, everything she had buried started coming out. She talked about childhood hurt, the pain of being judged too early, the humiliation she felt from body comments, the trauma of fame she wasn't prepared for, and the loneliness she hid behind her jokes. She cried for years she had stayed silent. She opened wounds she had never touched. She finally let herself feel everything she had avoided. And with every session, she understood something important. Her biggest battle was never with her body. It was with the emotional weight she carried inside her heart. Therapy didn't magically fix everything, but it gave her tools she never had before. She learned to set boundaries. She learned to say no. She learned to stop apologizing for existing. Slowly, the emotional fog started lifting. She began breathing easier. She started waking up with a little more strength. The world outside didn't change, but she was changing inside. And this inner shift prepared her for something she didn't see coming. Someone who would enter her life at the exact moment she needed support the most. This is where it gets interesting because the person who changed her direction wasn't a superstar, wasn't a Hollywood insider, and wasn't someone trying to fix her. It was someone who simply saw her as a human being. When she met Brandon Frankel, love wasn't even on her mind. She was healing, recovering, rediscovering herself. But sometimes life brings the right person at the right time. Brandon didn't care about fame. He didn't care about appearances. He didn't treat her like a project or a Hollywood figure. He treated her like someone who deserved peace, patience, and softness. He listened. He cared. He respected her boundaries. And for the first time in a long time, she felt safe with someone. People close to her later said that Brandon brought a calmness that almost felt impossible for her. His presence became steady support during her darkest moments. He reminded her that she didn't have to fight alone. He showed her she deserved love that didn't hurt, didn't judge, didn't demand. This emotional safety became the push she needed to take her transformation even more seriously. For the first time, she wasn't healing just to survive. She was healing to live. With Brandon's support, she finally felt the strength to fully commit to changing her life. Let me tell you, this is how her real transformation began, not just physically, but emotionally and spiritually. She started following a routine that included proper medical care, healthier eating, and consistent wellness habits. She met specialists she had once been afraid to consult. She worked with doctors, therapists, and nutritionists, learning more about her body and mind than she had in years. But the most important change happened inside her heart. She began speaking to herself with kindness. She stopped blaming herself for the past. She forgave the years of judgment and pressure. Slowly, the walls she had built around herself started coming down, brick by brick. And just when she thought she was finally finding balance, the craziest part happened. Life decided to test her again. She faced moments that could have undone everything, the kind of emotional challenges that sneak up quietly but hit hard. There were days filled with fear, insecurity, and doubt. She questioned if all her efforts were enough. But each time, Brandon's presence reminded her she wasn't alone. She had a partner who believed in her even when she didn't believe in herself. This gave her the courage to push forward, to fight not against the world, but for herself. As the months passed, her inner strength began to show on the outside. Her posture changed, her smile became brighter, her confidence radiated in ways that weren't about appearance, but about self-worth. And the change didn't go unnoticed. Friends, family, and eventually the world started seeing a new Gabourey, someone who had endured, someone who had survived, someone who had finally reclaimed her story. What makes this story different? Her transformation wasn't driven by a fear of judgment or a desire for attention. It was about truly valuing herself for the first time in her life. Then came a moment that marked another turning point. Brandon proposed. The engagement wasn't just a celebration of love. It was a powerful symbol of everything she had fought for. It reminded her that she deserved joy, that she deserved partnership, and that her life was worth living fully. With that new motivation, she leaned even deeper into her journey. Every doctor's visit, every therapy session, every healthy meal and exercise routine took on a new meaning. She wasn't doing it just for survival. She was doing it to build the life she had always dreamed of. And finally, the world began to see glimpses of her transformation. She shared small photos online, almost casually, but within minutes, people were shocked. Is that really Gabourey Sidibe? They asked. Comments poured in, expressing disbelief, admiration, and curiosity. Fans who had followed her journey cried with happiness. New viewers were stunned by the change. Even critics who once focused only on her appearance were speechless. But here is the shocking part. Each image wasn't just about how she looked, it was about how she carried herself. She exuded confidence, peace, and a joy that had been missing for years. This was a woman who had survived storms no one could see, and now she was thriving on her own terms. When Gabourey stepped back into the public eye fully, no one was prepared for what they saw. She didn't just look different, she looked transformed, completely renewed. You won't believe how much energy and confidence radiated from her. Her face glowed, her posture was strong, and her smile carried a kind of joy that felt impossible to fake. She was no longer performing for anyone. She wasn't seeking approval or trying to prove a point. She had finally reclaimed her story. Every glance at her reflected a woman who had fought silently, who had endured criticism, body shaming, panic, and emotional pain, and had emerged stronger on the other side. This is where it gets interesting. The public could see the change, but they couldn't fully understand the journey behind it. At events, photographers couldn't stop snapping pictures. Fans crowded social media, amazed at the glow she carried. Celebrities celebrated her courage and confidence. The world wasn't just stunned by how she looked, it was stunned by the aura she carried. Every movement, every laugh, every glance told the story of someone who had survived and transformed in ways no one else could imagine. She wasn't just back, she was back on her own terms. What makes this story different? She didn't chase fame or acceptance. She chased a life that made her happy, healthy, and at peace with herself. The transformation was complete, but it wasn't about the outside. It was about every scar, every struggle, every quiet battle she had faced and conquered. And even then, life threw a little twist that made everything even more remarkable. People saw the glow and assumed it was only physical, but those who knew her journey understood the depth of her change. It was emotional. It was spiritual. She had faced the darkest parts of herself and refused to be defeated. The craziest part was that she had taken all the pain, all the judgment, all the fear, and used it to create the strongest version of herself. No paparazzi, no awards, no critics. None of it had the power to define her anymore. She had defined herself. Finally, the full circle of her story revealed the true hero of her journey, herself. Therapy, love, medical care, and determination had built her into a woman who didn't just survive, she thrived. Destiny took an unexpected turn when she realized that every obstacle, every harsh word, every dark night had been preparing her for this moment. She walked into the spotlight not to prove anyone wrong, not to impress the world, but to show herself that she was worthy of love, happiness, and peace. The applause, the photos, and the admiration were just reflections of the transformation that had already happened deep inside her. This was Gabourey Sidibe, stronger, brighter, and finally free, living life on her own terms,